Welcome to the Brain Trust Driving Change podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Bloomfield. And whether you're a leader, a coach, a salesperson, or even a parent, this podcast focuses on how to leverage the science of decision making to help you become a more impactful communicator and a driving force for change. Welcome back to the Driving Change podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Bloomfield, and you all know that the purpose of this show is to bring on really unique guests who have really unique stories and let their life experiences help motivate and inspire us so that we can go out and make a bigger impact in our lives as well. Well, today's guest is one of those true inspirations. In fact, you're going to hear a lot. Mr. Mike Crawford and I have a lot in common. You're going to hear as we go through, and he's transcended far beyond the farm that I grew up on in North Central Ohio, but you'll get to hear a lot of his backstory. Mike Crawford, if you don't know the name, you probably will know his experience. And today, he's actually the chairman of the board, president, and chief executive officer for the Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company and all the subsidiaries, which includes the Hall of Fame Village, which is sponsored by Johnson Controls. And I've been up there twice. And if you've not been up to the Hall of Fame Village in the recent past, it is incredible what they're doing up there. It's going to be incredibly exciting. But I will tell you, we're going to get into Mike's background because before he had the role he has today, he actually was a big executive internationally for Walt Disney World. And a lot of crazy experience there that I think we'll be able to draw on. He also was an executive for Four Seasons. He's just done an amazing work, and he's an Ohio guy. So he's got the Buckeye roots, got his undergrad at Bowling Green, got his master's out at Notre Dame, which I don't hold that against him. Everybody's got to go do what they got to do. But today he's leading this really transformation of what's happening up in North Central Ohio there in Canton with the Hall of Fame Village. And I couldn't be more excited to unpack Mike's history, his story, and all that he has to offer us today. So Mike, welcome to the Driving Change podcast.
It's great, Jeff. Thank you for having me. And it's exciting to be on with you.
And the fact that you even allowed enough time to do this episode, because I know what your agenda looks like, because I've seen and has shown me what your agenda looks like up there. We're honored to have you for even a little bit of time today. Now, Mike, you know that, and I even warned you in the pre-show, that we always start with every episode, every guest. We want to know your backstory. We want to know your origin story. One of the points in common we have is our origin stories are very similarly geographically aligned. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where you come from.
Yeah, I was listening to you talk about the titles and the places and the companies, and I got to tell you, I still, for me, I'm just Michael Crawford, Willard, Ohio. 7,000 people from that town. I remember growing up and thinking when we got McDonald's that it was the biggest thing that ever happened to me, right? And then when they started serving breakfast, that was even bigger. Grew up very much like most middle-class Americans do. I had a lot of good friends and parents that were incredibly influential in terms of how to think about things. My father and I would have discussions in focus sessions versus punishments, if I did something wrong, which seemed to be, every once in a while. I wasn't too bad of a kid, I guess. But I didn't know a lot. I was a pretty immature guy as I was growing up and going through high school. I didn't venture too far away from home. I went to Bowling Green State University, loved it there. It was a great campus, a great experience. Didn't want to leave. Frankly, I wanted to keep going to school forever. And had applied to continue and get my master's immediately after getting my undergrad. I had a good friend. His name was Terry Furr. He still works for the Walt Disney Company, as a matter of fact, who called me. He was my big brother in my fraternity. I was a Fiji. He was a Fiji. And he had gone to work for Walt Disney World down in Florida. And he called me after graduation and he said, "Hey, don't waste your time up in Bowling Green. Come down here, for the summer. We'll have a great time and you'll love working at Disney." And to think about working for a company like Disney was so far beyond my imagination. That was kind of like going to the moon for me at that point in time. I did. I loaded up my golf clubs and 2 bags in my Chevy Chevette that I had at the time and made the trip down to Orlando by myself. I think it was my father or my uncle gave me their AAA card in case I got in trouble, along the way. And then when I got down there, I just fell in love with the company. I can remember calling my mom. They did a 1-week training and immersion program, 1 week, 8 hours a day, paid you for it, teaching you the history and the culture and, how Disney came about and what Walt did to create this mecca of entertainment and this immersive environment that they had at Walt Disney World. And I called her on a Friday afterwards and I said, this is unbelievable. This company is something that I could have never imagined working for. By the way, at the time, I was wearing a polyester costume, no kidding, a white sort of ice cream looking costume, and I was selling tickets. I was running valet. I was doing some bar backing. So I started as an hourly employee. I had no intention of staying. And when it was time for me to leave, a good friend at that point in time had suggested, we're expanding like crazy here. You got a head on your shoulders, half a brain, which is about all I had at the time. You should stay. And I did. And they put me in their management program. I think I had 7 jobs in my first 5 years of working there. I was the kind of guy who, if they said, and it was a lesson my father always taught me, be the person that you would want to have working for you. I can remember him saying that. And, if they needed me to work 15 hours or 20 hours in a day, I did. And, I sort of trusted, this was the Walt Disney Company. I trusted the leaders that were there and they moved me from, retail dining and entertainment district called Pleasure Island to hotels to theme parks. And I really got a very general view of what it took to be a part of and be a manager or a leader in that kind of environment. Fast forward, I was given opportunities to lead things for that company that I could have never imagined. I grew up pretty quickly. I worked in California for several months, opening up a new property for them out there. Then I was asked to move to Tokyo. And again, you're talking to a guy who came from 7,000 person, small town, and going to Orlando was huge. Think about moving to Tokyo, never having lived overseas. I had traveled overseas a couple of times and was overwhelmed just doing that. And I had a wife and a small child at the time, just turning 2.5 years old. I can remember hours of staying up at night with my wife at the time and just discussing, are we really ready to do something like this as a family? It was the best move I ever made. It unlocked a career and frankly, a point of view that I could have never probably had staying in Orlando. And I loved Orlando. I had absolutely no desire to leave. We lived there for 3.5 years, completely immersed ourselves in the culture. I had an opportunity to open and run, Tokyo Disney Sea, Tokyo Disneyland. It was an incredible experience and one that, as I was leaving from, I thought, well, that was a great international experience. And then the company sort of stopped me. I was headed back to Orlando to run their studios there. And they stopped me and said, hey, you got this international experience. We want to grow our brand internationally in the theme park and resort group. Would you mind sort of doing business development for us? Sure, why not? I've not done a lot of deals in my life, but why wouldn't I be qualified to do that? And I spent the next, call it 6-7 years traveling around predominantly Asia, working with the Singapore government, the Malaysian government, Australian government. And then, had a chance to lead what ultimately concluded my Disney career, a big negotiation with the Shanghai and Beijing governments to bring a big destination resort, Disney resort, to Shanghai. And they had been trying to do this for 2 decades, by the way. And, one of the things that I learned from that was relationships matter, investing in people and taking the time to get to understand the culture and what was really going to drive success for us in that particular geography. I learned a lot from my time in Tokyo. And so I took a small team over and lived there for 2 years, and we did the deal. And we were successful. It was a big deal for the Walt Disney Company. Bob Iger, who was the CEO at the time, sort of said that was his legacy project. And I had never had visions of leaving Disney. It's a phenomenal company. And then got a call from another big branded company, the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, and they were looking for a president in Asia Pacific. And then, frankly, a succession plan to their CEO role. Took another chance, left Shanghai, went to Singapore, lived there for 2 years, must have done something right there, recrafted their strategy in Asia and helped them launch more successfully, and then was brought to be president of the company in terms of the overall management of the portfolio that they had of assets and residential assets. Lived in Toronto for 2 years, and then lo and behold, another phone call came. And to be honest, when that phone call came, I really was not in a position thinking that I was going to move. I'd been with Four Seasons 4.5 years, but they started talking about Ohio. They started talking about professional football. They started talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I started envisioning, what Walt must have been thinking. And I'm not trying to compare myself to Walt Disney by any means, but what he must have been thinking at the time he was creating movies and thinking about this destination that he could create for, all of, people, families and friends to go and enjoy together. And what I looked at in this company was something that was really unique. Power of professional football, access to intellectual property that no one else had access to, and the potential to build something from the ground up, which was really exciting. And I'm not just talking about the destination, but a company that had the potential to impact people's lives. So it's been from Willard, Ohio, growing up to Orlando, to California, to Tokyo, to California, to Shanghai, to Singapore, to Toronto, to Canton, Ohio. I've come full circle, and I couldn't be more pleased being here and with the team that we're assembling and the progress we're making. But a lot was sort of learned and experienced along the way.
Wow, that's I think I've got motion sickness just listening to your story. So let's go backwards, and I want to touch on some things that you said, and I want to go a little bit deeper, because the points of connection you and I have is for the listeners, not that you care that much, but the high school Mike graduated from, the high school I graduated from, were like 6 miles apart. And we didn't know this until very recently. And our experiences in growing up in a Midwestern town, an area where small community, I was on a farm. You guys grew up more in Willard, but you got manufacturing and farming, right? That was really the two things that
and railroad.
And the railroad, right? So for many of our peers, it was a big deal to grow up to get a job in one of the factories or to take over the farm, right? That was kind of the aspirational limits for a lot of thinking. And for us to have the ability to have folks in our lives like your father, my grandfather, and even my parents say, look, you got to go to college, you got to move on, you got to see what's out there. That wasn't that common for folks like us. So for those listening, and you've got either maybe you're younger today or maybe you've got kids, don't limit their thinking about what's possible, because it is a really big world out there, and the amount of exposure you can provide for yourself and your family is only going to allow them to have a greater impact, like Mike has had, like I hope that I've had. And never forgetting your roots. Don't forget where you come from, because the lessons you learn in Willard, Ohio, and on the farm I grew up on, those things carry forward and help really give you impact on every relationship you have in your entire life. So that's one point of connection. Second point of connection was I spent a fair amount of time at Disney, because I went into the college program and then went back to be a special events manager. And in the Pleasure Island, the Disney Village Marketplace, one of the things I wanted to unpack with you a little bit was I didn't fully appreciate. Now, growing up, my grandfather was a little bit maniacal about detail. And, we had this whole idea about problem solving and details matter and all those things you learn. I didn't fully appreciate how much the details mattered until my stint at Disney. And what I learned at Disney was this is a major machine with loads of people operating in lots of different areas. And when you stepped out in your costume, now my first stint, by the way, was submarine captain on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Jungle Cruise captain. And I got demoted from both of those because I wouldn't stick to the script. So I learned something else about myself is, follow the directions of what's been said. Don't give me a microphone and with my creative brain and tell me to follow a script. It didn't work well for me. However, I learned that the details are so important. And you said something about that your dad taught you was be the person that you want to work for, right? And that idea of the pursuit of excellence and the details matter, and every single person you interact with, you're a representation of the brand of who you work for, in this case, Disney. They were maniacal about it. And I think I learned this idea. I probably do have attention deficit disorder, but my wife would probably say I've got attention detail disorder because I'm very detailed about specific things. Not everything, she would argue, but very specific things. And I think I picked that up at Disney. And now, from your experience, what did you pick up from just the branding, the marketing, and the attention to the customer experience that you learned at a young age that carried you forward? What were some of the lessons you learned there?
Yeah, well, first, let me just say, to get demoted from being a Jungle Cruise captain, that speaks volumes about your ability to just riff, because those guys are hilarious as it stands on their own with the script. So I could only imagine going off script. I would tell you that I think Disney gave me a chance to really mature. I enjoyed my college years probably more so than I should have, right? And being in a fraternity certainly didn't help that, although in some cases it helped. The leadership there, the ability to give input and to have a voice, the ability to solve challenges for guests. The number one thing was never let a guest leave you with a problem. They may show up with one, but you've got to solve it. It doesn't matter what it is. From the smallest, hey, I dropped my popcorn, to the, hey, I've got a significant issue, an emergency that I need to deal with, and you got to help me do it. I was really impacted by leaders and their care and their commitment to develop people. Disney's a very developmental type of culture. They love to grow people through the rank and file, right? And bring that culture to the leadership levels so it continues. And I was very impressed by that. You're right. I had a boss that would not walk down the street 15 feet and not stop and pick up a piece of trash if she saw one. And that was instilled in me. You've got to look for safety and cleanliness and take the time to engage and speak with guests. I was so moved with the conversations I'd have. My gosh, I'd be walking down Main Street, USA in the Magic Kingdom and just walk up to somebody and say, hey, how's it going today? How's your vacation? And for 10 minutes with tears in their eyes, they'd talk about how they'd saved for 5 years, 10 years to bring their grandchildren or their children there, and how impressed and overwhelmed they were. And just taking those moments to really appreciate the impact that you could have on people's lives, whether it were the people that worked for you or the people that were there, being entertained and being hosted by you, was something that's always stuck with me. And the last thing was, I wouldn't trade starting in that hourly employee position for anything. It really taught me, and Orlando's pretty hot in the summer and for the rest of the year, standing out there in a costume, smiling, making sure that I was giving that guest service, whether it was 8 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours a day, and then getting into a leadership position where you were going to make decisions on having to cut labor because, the numbers weren't as good this quarter. And really having the eye towards the guest experience and making sure that we weren't making small decisions that were going to have a large, significant impact. That was really important to me. That focus on, it starts with employees making at that time $7, $8, $10 an hour. That's where the experience starts and ends. You can't shortchange yourself there, and you got to treat everybody with respect and make sure that you're considering the end game versus just the short. We're conditioned in the U.S. with our financial markets to consider quarter to quarter decisions, and that's unfortunate. But it was a phenomenal experience, and it sounded like you had a lot of really great life lessons there as well. It offered me opportunities that I could have never imagined.
That's really good. One of the things you said that, boy, we were just talking about it in our team today. This is so important, and I don't know if it's, I don't want to think that I've started to devolve into the old get off my lawn guy as I get older, right? But the idea of customer service, I feel like is eroding. And I think part of the reason why it just depends on the industry is because we don't empower people to not let a customer leave until they've solved their problem. That comment you made you're so spot on, and they were maniacal about it down there, right? The guest, that attention for that guest, if you had to walk them clear to the other side of the Magic Kingdom back to their car because they needed you to carry something, you were to do that. And that experience that the guests have, that's why they rave about it, right? It's that the people on stage, right, that work at Disney, they're empowered to not leave the customer or the guest until they've solved their problem. And I think a lot of times today in customer service, the buck gets passed back and forth, and it's so frustrating. Whether you're a payroll company or whether you're a video technology company and you have a customer service department, you might get passed between 3 or 4 people, and you got to keep answering the same questions to start over again. And that principle is so rare, and yet when you see it and you feel it, it makes a significant difference to the customer experience. And you had a chance to do it at Disney. I'm thinking about the brands that you've worked for, Four Seasons, right? And then you moved into the NFL, which is arguably as big a brand as anything globally now. That's incredible that you've had those 3 brand experiences that are known for just elite customer experience.
Yeah, no, listen, I would agree. I'm very fortunate. I always, compare Four Seasons to Disney in a slightly different way. Disney had to do it for the masses, tens of millions of people coming to their properties every single year. And so a much more process-oriented type of company that still had the ability to go one-on-one when they needed to and resolve, guest issues. Four Seasons does it for the individual. And I don't know of any company, at least hotel company out there, that does it better. I was a Four Seasons guest long before I worked for Four Seasons as a company employee. But, the way in which they know the individuals and their tastes and how they like to be approached, and, just the nuances, the subtle nuances. There's always a saying at Disney as well, we create the details and focus on the details so guests don't have to. And that was from the design of the place making and the elements around guest to the way in which the customer service, the food was delivered, whatever experience they were having. And so it just felt very natural. Four Seasons was exactly the same way. You didn't realize that towel was placed by your chair when you were at the pool, or your napkin was folded as you got up to go to the restroom when you came back. You just took that for granted. But those little nuances, the little attentions to detail. And yeah, coming into this role, I would say the power of professional football and the experiences that our fans have are incredible. But the chance to build a culture, we're sort of, our company, Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company, sits at the crossroads of sports and entertainment. And so we want to create a place, physical, we want to create virtual environments where the same thing applies. The quality is so high, the service is so high that you don't have to think. You just immerse yourself and you enjoy whichever experience that you come to partake of. And we're getting there. We went public in July of 20. We fought COVID every step of the way. It's been a really difficult environment. We've continued to hire great talent. I always reference Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and it's not putting people on the bus, it's putting the right people on the bus. Same with the NFL. When you've got great talent, you just put them in the positions and let them play, right? And sometimes they can play multiple positions. And so, we've been very focused on bringing the right talent in and having a culture that is about team, having a culture that is about covering for each other and making sure that we're being inclusive. And I found the same things at Disney and Four Seasons. You never had to worry about the territorial, egos that people weren't welcoming of others' opinions. And that's what we're focused on as well. The more, it's not management by committee, but it certainly is management by inclusion. And the more thoughtful opinions and smart people you get in the room, the better the experience, the better the service, the better the product, everything is going to be. So yeah, a lot of great companies that I've learned so much from.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of leadership riches that you've had over the course of your career, which you've earned all the way, which is fantastic. Well, let's let the audience understand, because I think that sometimes there's some confusion around. So the NFL is its own entity, the Hall of Fame is its own entity, the Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company, yet you're all part of this brand, professional football. Did I describe that well enough, or would you like to do that in a different way?
I think you did. There's this spider web that we're all sort of entangled in. Clearly, the NFL is the NFL, right? And it is a mega machine that does so many things at the top of the game, no pun intended. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is the representation here in Canton, Ohio, of the best that have ever played or contributed to the game. It's a non-for-profit. And our company is being built off of the popularity of professional football. We do many things in partnership with the NFL. We license the Pro Football Hall of Fame brand. We do many things in partnership with them as well. But we are a for-profit company traded on the NASDAQ under the symbol HOFV. And we have three business verticals. We're creating theme destination-based assets, the first of which is here in Canton, but we have a vision towards creating sort of representative assets of, entertainment in a box, if you will, in other NFL franchise cities. We have media, and we've already announced, many new media projects. We just stood up our media division last year, and we've signed a dozen deals already. And we've already been into production on quite a few, and we've already distributed some as well. And so that's quite a heavy lift for a company to stand up a media division. And then lastly, gaming. We know a lot of folks engage with professional football and sport in general through esports, fantasy sports, and certainly now sports betting. In Ohio is now legalized. In December, they passed legislation that legalized sports betting here. And we have an obligation to, as I always say, be in the spaces where our fans and our guests are really enjoying what they do in terms of their time with sport and non-sport activities. And those gaming areas that I just referenced are multi-billion-dollar industries where a lot of people who can't, like me, get on the field and play, still feel the enthusiasm of being a part of a team or a part of the game. And so we've done a lot of work around each of those three verticals to kind of stand them up and create experiences that we think are really unique and different.
Yeah, no, we'll point people to the right places here at the end. But I've been up there recently, right, and I've seen the changes, and I've seen the roadmap of where things are going, and it's really exciting with what you guys are doing, what you're creating there. Now, let me ask you a couple of little practical questions here. As a leader, you're really helping take this from, I don't want to say where, I want to give it a measurement, but you're taking it beyond. I'm not going to say where you started, but you're taking it to the next level. And you may not have always, so you had the Disney brand behind you and a create, I mean, that was already a very well established, you kind of continue to build off of that foundation. Same with Four Seasons. Now the Hall of Fame Village is still relatively a young brand, if you think about it in terms of the big picture. What are the biggest challenges? Let's get into the head of Mike Crawford, who's the chairman and the CEO of the Hall of Fame Village. When you wake up in the morning, this is good insight for all leaders to think like a CEO. What are the three top of mind things that you, like big initiatives that you think of categorically? Boy, we've got to get these right. If we don't get these right, this thing isn't going to go where it needs to go. What are some of those thoughts? Let us into the mind of Mike Crawford on an everyday basis.
I don't know that you want to go. There's a lot of voices in there, and they've got a lot of different conversations going on. For me, it's fairly simple. And I have a saying: keep the main thing the main thing. Right now, we've got to hire great talent, and we've got to put them in a position to win every single day. We have to have the right strategy, and I think we do. We have to keep it simple. It's easy to get excited. There's a whole bunch of things in the world today that become these shiny little objects that you want to run over. Oh, we should try that. Oh, we should try this. Stay disciplined and stay focused around the building blocks, the foundation of what it is that you're about. And our tagline is honor the past and inspire the future. Very simple, right? We're living at the heart of where the greatest players in professional football history are enshrined and honored every single day. We have to find a way to honor that legacy, to leverage that legacy, monetize that legacy, while at the same time keeping an eye towards what else is going on that we can inspire through destinations we're creating or experiences we're creating. And that's the inspire the future, right? And that's the e-gaming. That's the non-fungible token business where it's digital collectibles that people are really interested in. But it's all wrapped around our strategy and everything that it's easy. And I can tell you almost on a daily basis, I get phone calls from other CEOs, other presidents, different companies looking to try to partner with us on something or potentially have their product or their services as a part of what we're doing. There's only so many things that you can take on and do them successfully at the same time. And, you can be a mile wide and an inch deep on a bunch of stuff and do them all at the bare bones, sort of average and be mediocre. Or you can have the best hot dog cart on the planet and sell something that people are really going to go out of their way to come and do. And I tell my daughter, Caitlin, that all the time. Every time I walk into a restaurant that has like 85 items, I always wonder, can they do all of these items at the very best level? I'd love to walk in and go, there's 3 things here. You're never going to have them better. This is the place you have to come. And I think people respect quality. And I think people will pay for quality. And once you have that, the product is the next big piece, but then how do you create in the minds of all the guests and the consumers this sense of urgency and awareness to come and experience what you have to offer? There's so much noise in the marketplace today. So many people can talk to lots of folks through social media. The way in which you align yourself with influencers or the way in which you distribute your content can really define who you are as a company. And so, the right people, the right strategy, great product, and then how do you communicate? How do you market and sell? Because you can have the best product on the planet if people don't know it and they don't have an urgency around experiencing it, you're not going to be successful. So I wake up every day thinking about those things. And the good news for me is we have a team that we continue to put in place that really owns this. And I'm the kind of leader that I give you a lot of autonomy and leading your respective division or your respective line of business. But you have a lot of accountability for that as well. And, our shareholders and our investors expect that from us. And so we regularly meet, we talk about what we're doing, we integrate what we're doing. One decision can permeate the organization and add value to multiple other areas of the company. And so it's really important that, I keep going back to this concept of the right people on the bus. It is so important to start with the foundation of people that you can count on that will build and grow and trust you as their leader to continue to help create these wonderful experiences that we're putting in place.
Well, it's a big task, and it's not that seat's not made for everybody that you're sitting in. That's for sure. So, just a couple last questions for you here. One is, this is the big one, and this is I think really will allow people to hear the heart of Mike Crawford. And I don't want it to sound morbid, but it's the tombstone question. When someone's eulogizing you, hopefully decades down the road, what do you want that narrative to be?
The thing that I would say is that you have to have perspective in life. And everything I've done has been great. And I've been honored and thrilled to be able to do it. I keep going back to things that my dad would always say to me, as I'm sure my daughter does with things that I said to her. And, it's not a football analogy, but it's baseball, and you've heard it. You're only as good as your last at bat. I am a guy who never thinks about being chairman and president and CEO. I'm a guy who approaches every single day as if my job is on the line. And, you can learn from your past. You can have all those wonderful experiences. And by the way, you should apply them and try to have them benefit you today. But every new situation you face, you have to be humble. You have to listen. You have to understand what you're dealing with, and you have to develop a new plan, a new strategy, hopefully drawing off of those previous experiences that you had. But you can't keep going back and reliving the Bruce Springsteen song Glory Days, right? I can't keep talking about Shanghai Disney and how great that was. No one in Canton, Ohio cares. They only care that I'm here and I'm doing what I said I was going to do. And we say that a lot here. We do what we say we're going to do. And if we don't say it, don't think we're going to do it, and so my eulogy, I hope, is given by my daughter. The single greatest job I've ever had has been a dad. She is the soul and probably the largest source of pride that I have. She is a great kid. She graduated from the University of Notre Dame. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, by the way. She graduated pre-med from Notre Dame. Have no idea why. I didn't push her there. Is incredibly intelligent, much more so than I. And I would just like to have her say, I couldn't have had a better father. I couldn't have had somebody who was there for me more, somebody who cared about what he did and showed me, that with passion and with drive and commitment, you can accomplish anything you want. She knew my background. She's been to Willard, Ohio with me. She understands, but she grew up in Shanghai and Tokyo and Singapore and Toronto. She lived in a very different world than I ever could imagine. And that world opened up, a lot of experiences for her. But I hope that somebody like her would be standing there saying, he's had an impact on a lot of people's lives, but most importantly, he really cared about what he did. And he cared about people, both people that worked for him and people that he, was in his family. And for me, he showed me, a way to live that was treating people with respect and doing the best that I possibly could every single day. Every morning I wake up, it's hard being apart from your kids. She's 24. She's living her own life now. I send her a text message every single day. Good luck. Do your best. Be great. And just remember, I love you. Every single day, that's the text message. She probably gets tired of seeing it, or she gets used to seeing it, but she responds every single day, I love you too. And, for me, that's what motivates me to be great. I want to make her proud, and I want to make, the people that are depending upon us as a company proud for what we're doing here. We have a special chance. You don't get an opportunity like this very often in your life to have an impact on a community, on a region, on a state, we hope, and on a game. And so that's our goal. But long-winded answer to.
No, that's great. That's great. But by the way, try not sending that text one day. You might think she gets tired of seeing it. You're going to get immediately, hey, where's my text? Right? Or she'll say, what's wrong? Where are you? All right, rapid fire as we leave. Favorite professional football team?
Cleveland Browns. Grew up a Browns fan.
All right, great. We're Bengals fans down here, obviously. So I'm just going to say you left a long time ago and there wasn't a Super Bowl since the late 80s. And then you come back and look what happens. We bring the wrong team for you, but right state. We got the right.
No, I was proud of the Bengals going. I couldn't be more proud. I'm an Ohio guy.
Yeah, that's great. Favorite professional athlete growing up?
Michael Jordan.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common.
He was so talented. I freakishly so.
Now, you've had so much exposure to a lot of probably professional athletes. Who's one of your favorite professional athletes that you've met in your life that you spent some time with? You really thought, wow, that was a better experience than I anticipated, having spent some time with that person.
I met a young Shaquille O'Neal down at Disney and got to spend time with him. Boy, what a character. I thought he was a lot of fun. I would say Jack Nicklaus was probably one of my favorites. He just such a gentleman, so mature in everything that he talked about. Those are the conversations you just shut up and listen, and I got he signed a master's flag for me back here. I got to spend some time with him down there. I've had so many, it gets dangerous starting to name them. Right. I had a flight from Orlando to LA with Julius Erving one time, and we just chatted for 3 hours. And you want to talk about a high quality individual who is smart, just an incredible guy. So lots of those names come up for me.
Those are always fun, right? When you see these athletes out there and you kind of personify them in one way, but then you get to spend time with them and you just really see there's a lot more under the hood than maybe you get to see on television every day. So, well, where can folks go to learn more about the project there at the Hall of Fame Village and everything you're working on? Where can they learn more about it, the timelines, and maybe even apply for a job if you've got some openings? I know you're hiring. Where can we go learn more about it?
We do have a lot of openings. So, our websites are probably the best place to go, halloffamevillage.com and Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company.com, HOFRE, HOFRECO.com. You can Google those. It puts you right into our ecosystem. We have Twitter accounts, the same thing, hashtag HOFV, a lot of places there. The thing that's really great about what we're doing now, we're bringing our mobile app online. And so you can, download that and the Village, and you can see a lot of the events we're hosting, and we're going to add more functionality to that where your ticket media, your wallet, everything can be. Our goal is an integrated experience here in Canton so that when you get here, you don't have to think about things. You can walk around and enjoy everything that you're doing. But we have a lot of construction going on. So our websites, we have a live construction cam. You can see that. The team is doing a really good job, and we've had some recent hires in our marketing and sales groups that are, I think, really taking us up a notch. So please go on those websites, have a look, and always happy to have people come on and see what we're doing.
Yeah, and I encourage anyone listening out there in a leadership position. I've been up there, I've seen what's happening, and I know from a destination standpoint, to be able to go find places for you and your company and your team to go and do these destinations, it's going to be phenomenal. And it really is going to be a world-class place to be. Forget about Vegas. You're going to want to go to Canton in a very near future and host your entire company event there. So, Mike, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. I know it's valuable, and I think it's been invaluable to our listeners to hear your story and all the value that you brought to us today. Thank you for being on.
No, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Great to be with another Midwestern success story. So good to be on. I really appreciate you having me.
Our pleasure. Best of luck.
Thanks. You too.